Hi everyone. In this video we are covering, for those of you who are running SAP Business One SQL edition, we will be covering a brief of the reporting options that are available within your Business One environment, and then we would like to show you a more visual and more analytical manner to consume this information through dashboards, which is using Qlik. Now, if you're running SAP Business One on HANA, we have a separate video for that, which is the same idea, but of course it has some differences. I'm going to be talking about them in this demo as well, just for you to get an idea of what the comparison is between the SQL and the HANA edition. Okay, so I have here open Business One environment on SQL. I have also the underlying SQL database here in case we need to access that, and then I have my Qlik, which I'm going to use for the second half of the presentation. Now, in terms of the reporting capabilities in Business One SQL edition, you have this report section clubbed by different areas. If I would like a sales report, I might go to the sales analysis, fill in some parameters, and that would bring me a list of the sales orders by customer and so on, which is effectively a report, static report that you can then export. And if you want to bring some insights on this data, so to understand this data and the trends and so on, you will need to bring it probably outside of the system and do that maybe in Excel. So that's one option, the ready-made reports available. There is a second option, which is using custom queries. In case the standard reports that you have here do not fit you, you can generate your own queries, and you can save that and basically run them whenever you need and get this information out. Okay. Now, one important thing whenever you want to generate your own queries, very useful, is understanding that in Business One, I'm going to open the sales order screen. Each of these fields that you see on the screen is actually related to a table and a column name in the database, right? So for you to understand that, in case you want to do some advanced reports, it's important to enable this system information option. That brings to the bottom of the screen here the technical information of the fields when you put your mouse over. So in this case, customer name, you can see at the bottom screen that is actually under order table, and the name of the column is car code. If I go to the name, same table, and then the column is car name, and so back, so forth. This is interesting in case you want to understand the structure of the data and build your own queries. Okay. Now, there's a third option in terms of reporting on your Business One SQL data, which would be using Crystal reports as an example. For that, you will need to follow this process of understanding the structure of the tables, bring the queries into your Crystal reports, and then design the front end of that report, which is obviously more advanced than the list that you can see here. But again, it might not provide you the full flexibility of a business intelligence or an analytics solution. These are the three options. Now, for those of you who are running on HANA, the beauty is that you have another option which is called pervasive analytics that allows you, we've covered in the other video, it allows you to select some KPIs and bring them in a dashboard way on the screen, whether it's a KPI or a chart, right? It could meet your requirements, or still you might need some more flexibility for the users in terms of accessing on mobile devices and being able to filter and so on, which is why we want to show you the alternative using Qlik. Okay, so how to do that on Qlik, how to connect your Qlik system on your Business One and potentially get some information. In the example we're going to use is going to be sales orders information. So I'm going to go to the queries, and I'm going to go to the user-defined queries, and I'm going to take this one that we have prepared, sales orders by date. It asks for some parameters. I'll run that. It says there is no data. That's fine. Again, this returns a list and it's based on a query which you can see on top, which we have defined earlier. Now I'm going to copy this because we're going to be using this on Qlik. And we're going to go to Qlik and we're going to do a full example. Hopefully it's going to take less than 10 minutes to do the whole thing, where we're going to connect to this data and we're going to provide an analytical environment dashboard visualization. So starting from scratch, I'll create a new app. I'll call this SAP B1 SQL. Once I open it, the first thing it will ask me is to bring information in. Now, before I do that, I'm just gonna paste here the query that I have. I'm doing that because you will see here the table names, and I'm gonna be using that. So that's the reason why I'm bringing that. So create a new data connection. I'm gonna create a connection to my SQL database. So I'm gonna go and select SQL as my database. I'm gonna put the details of this database connection and security. There we go. Now, different ways to access this data. Now we are already connecting to our Business One, right? Now, the Business One that we're using is this one here. So we need to select that database, and DBO is always the owner. And with that, you will see all the tables available. Now, I could be doing something as simple as going to this table, for example, order. So I'll click order, select that, see all the columns in it, and then bring that data straight away inside, and potentially back to the second table here, which is called RDR1. I could go here and select that as well, as an example. Okay, bring both tables and then use the capabilities of Qlik to effectively combine this data and visualize it as a single dashboard. To keep the example simple, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use a different option just to take advantage of the query that we already copied from the Business One. So I'm gonna go to the script editor here. Again, we could be doing that through the wizard, but just to keep the example short for today, I'm gonna just use the same query, which is also a very useful way because some queries might already serve the purpose of the dashboard and you just paste them here and you can analyze the data. So I'm not going to get into the details on how Qlik, functionalities are in terms of extracting data, but I think it's easy to follow what I'm going to do. I just create one empty section here. This is my connection to my Business One. I'll just click so it connects there, and I'm gonna create one table. It's gonna call sales order, just give it a name, and now is when I'm gonna basically just use the query that we have. Now I'm gonna take this one, which is one that I have slightly modified. The only difference, just for you to see, is that the one in Business One is using some parameters. If you remember, there's a pop-up screen to filter and select some parameters. That, of course, you don't need it in terms of Qlik because the filtering is going to happen afterwards. So I'm going to take the same query without that. I'll put that in. That is an option of Qlik that you can just dump a query in, and based on the connection, it's going to run and get the data back. So without further ado, I can load this data. What this has done is basically retrieve 165 rows. And this is coming from effectively three tables. The order table, which is the order header table in Business One. This RDR1, which is the order details table. And there is this third table, OITM, which is the items table, which is the products table effectively. Okay. There are some parameters here that were coming from the query in terms of not cancelled documents and so on, which is useful already. Now, I loaded this data in. I'll just do it one more time. It's pretty quick. Close. I'm gonna, now that I have my data already connected to Business One, I'm gonna show you a flexible way to visualize this data and get some information that probably is not that straightforward to get from a report on your Business One. So I just created an empty sheet, and that's where I'm gonna start creating my visualizations. For those of you that are more familiar with Qlik, you might already know the different options here, but for this example, I'm just going to show you the library of different visualizations available here. And if I click here, based on the information that I brought from Business One, in this case is just one query, I could be bringing other information. I have here the information available ready for my dashboard. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create one line chart. That is one, and I'm going to try to understand how are my sales orders looking over time. So as you can see here, I have delivery date. That might be interesting for me. I'll bring that in, delivery date, add that in. And the other information, probably the quantity. So I want to know how many products have been bought in each period. So I would bring quantity. That's a measure, which is a sum. Okay, so that will be my first visualization. I'm gonna just create a second one. Okay, for this one, I'm gonna use couple, one KPI object, and one tree map. I'll make that a little bit smaller. I'll make that bigger, might be easier. Let's say I'm interested in knowing by customer what's the split of orders that have been requested. Okay, so as we've seen earlier, if you remember, we have the car code and the car name, which is the customer. If you don't find these names intuitive, that's okay. You can always in Qlik create a dimension and call it. I'm gonna call it customer name. Add that in. So from now on, this is available for anybody to just do drag and drop and easily realize that this is the customer name. Now, in this other chart here, what I said is I'm gonna just count orders, so probably I'm just gonna count documents. So I say I wanna count that, and I'm just gonna put here as a KPI the quantity as a sum, and I might wanna also count the documents, add as a count. Okay. Yeah, so in this example, we've done pretty quickly, but you can see it in a very visual way, and again, connected to your Business One data, which means it gets refreshed whenever you have new orders and new transactions. I can immediately see that probably this customer is the one that has placed more orders. I can drill into this chart and see how the orders change over time, as an example. And you can use the features of Qlik in terms of filtering, such as if I want to focus on certain, let's say the top customers here, top 4 customers, I can see how the orders have evolved over time. And I can have here the total of the quantity of the orders and how many, the quantity of items ordered, sorry, and how many orders were placed, as an example. Additional advantage, other than the flexibility, we've covered in the other video the fact that you can use the search, which is very helpful. And I can say, actually, I'm interested in a customer called Shark, so I want to analyze this specific customer, which is here. Immediately you can find it and then understand the sales over time for that specific customer. Another interesting thing is important differentiator when it comes to data discovery and analytics, which is the mobility, right? So you might need access to this information outside of your organization when you're at a meeting or you're heading to a customer and you want to understand the orders that have been placed and which products might make sense to talk about. Mobility is something that Qlik is built in, is in the technology. So if I would just show you, and I'm using just the browser to make it easier, how it would look, this same dashboard that we've just done on, let's say, on an iPad. And I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger. You can see exactly the same information on the iPad, whether it's on portrait or landscape mode. Same functionalities apply. So if I go and I want to select on this chart, I might select an area here. Sorry, because probably on the browser this option doesn't work. On the iPad, of course it does. Or I can select, different customers as we've seen earlier, and the same functionalities apply, and see the trends and so back and so forth. Yep. I could be doing that as well on an iPhone example, and the tool will basically adapt it as per the screen where you're seeing the data. So just to wrap up, right? So Business One on SQL gives you a lot of information, and you can access that easily in the shape of reports mainly. When it comes to providing something more for the management or across the organization that gives them more insights and more flexibility in terms of selecting and understanding the data and answering questions that they have, Qlik is a very suitable option, easy to deploy, connected to your Business One in few steps. Okay, so with that, thank you very much for watching, and we'll issue more videos soon. Thank you.